I call the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. This is the question and answer time, when the Minister in the chair gets to answer the questions posed by the opposition. So, Minister, I have a couple that I would really appreciate you answering. First of all, was the Minister aware that the original legislation passed in 1998 was also passed under urgency, and does she think maybe that accounts for the fact that perhaps we made an error at the time, all the parties in the House? And we're hopefully, can the Minister assure the House that we're not going to be making another mistake, that we have got this absolutely right? And Minister, I'd also like to know, what is the financial impact of this change? Because I've read what the Minister has said. She said we're talking a day. It's not a huge amount. And so if it's only a day and it's not a huge amount, what is the cost, taking it back to May 2014, for the people who are allowed to apply? What would be the cost to the government of that? Now, I would have thought that work would have been done, because the government has known about this problem since May 2014, and 4 or 5 months ago they introduced a bill that had this particular part hidden in it, and I would have thought they would have done this work for the Select Committee, and perhaps the chair of the Select Committee might be aware of what the financial impact is, and was that provided to the Select Committee? Because if it isn't, it seems to be a strange way about making a change to law. But I suspect there was no work done on what the financial impact was, because the Department disclosure statement actually says, was there any analysis available on the size of the potential costs and benefit? And the answer is no. So this has been put together on the word of the Minister, and Minister Bennett is mouthing to me. I'm not quite sure what she's mouthing, but maybe Minister Bennett knows, as she's in Cabinet, what the financial costs of this is. Is the Minister of Social Development correct when she said, and I quote, that it's we're talking a day, it's not a huge amount? If we're talking a day and it's not a huge amount, quantify the huge amount? It's not a huge amount, what is it? Now, could the Minister, either the Minister who's in the chair or maybe Minister Bennett would like to take the chair because she's in the Cabinet, and tell us what is the financial cost of... and I think she was the Minister in May last year. Was that correct, Minister? So did the Minister at the time seek to find out what the financial cost would this be? Did she seek to find out what the cost would be if you allow a period of time to allow anybody who was affected back to 1998, what that cost would be? You see, we have put up a supplementary order paper, which I support, saying, why don't we allow this very small window, this very small 6-week window, to allow those people who might be affected back to 1998 to put in a claim? Did the government do any work on the financial cost if there was a period of time at which people could put in a claim? Was there any costings on that? Because maybe the government would find that it wasn't very big at all if we go by the Minister. Well, it's only a day. We're not talking about a huge amount. So if that work hasn't been done, why wasn't it done? Because what we're getting here, Mr Chairman, is a closing off of natural justice. That is wrong. And I would have thought before they closed off natural justice to people who've been affected by an error, that they would have quantified what that impact was. What is the financial impact of it? The other thing, I wonder whether the Minister could answer, why has there been no advice provided to the Attorney-General on any provisions of this bill that appear to limit any of the rights and freedoms affirmed in the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990. Did the Minister of the time, and the Minister in the Chair may or may not be able to answer it, was any advice, Mr Chair,
The Honourable
was any advice sought by the Minister of the day on whether there would be any limits to the rights and freedoms of New Zealanders? I would have thought that was pretty fundamental when you're going to carry out retrospective legislation, that you would want to know, was there any limitation on the rights and freedoms of New Zealanders? So could the Minister tell us, was any advice being provided to the Attorney-General to let him give some advice? Because I believe Christopher Finlayson would have looked very carefully at this. He, as he does, a very meticulous man, and very well related, and he would have looked very carefully at this legislation to see if it did limit the rights and freedoms, but he wasn't given the opportunity because the department disclosure statement said he wasn't asked. So we don't know whether it does or not. So, the Minister in the Chair, I would like to know whether any advice was provided or sought from the Attorney-General, and would that or would it not be an important issue for a government that prides itself on human rights and democracy? Would that have been an important issue? So, Mr Chairman, I urge the government to reconsider the supplementary order paper provided in the name of Carmel Sepuloni, who has said in this House, we will support this bill. We understand the problem. We know it has to be fixed. But will the government reconsider her supplementary order paper to enable a window of time for anybody who is affected to put in an application? And look, I'd lay odds on there wouldn't be very many of them. I don't think a lot of us keep such good records that we can remember when we stopped and started work and went on a benefit and didn't go on a benefit. And was it 99 or was it 2001? Was it on the 29th of March? I mean, what are we talking about here? Let's get real. How many? No, oh, well, I don't believe the member for Clutha would have a clue when he stopped and started work. Give us the date that he stopped and started work. You see, I think they have made a mistake here. And I'm saying correct the mistake now by accepting Carmel Sepuloni's supplementary order paper. You would get the broad support of the parties in this House, Minister. Perhaps the Minister doesn't have the authority. I know she's not the Minister. She's in the chair, good on her for being in the chair, but maybe she hasn't got the authority to make this decision. I suggest a little whisper in Minister Bennett. Minister Bennett is a very powerful minister. She may be able, because she was there when this was discovered, she might be able to persuade the government to accept the supplementary order paper. And look, it won't be the end of the world for the government if you did. I can promise you we wouldn't crow very much if this supplementary order paper was accepted, because you know what? We would be providing natural justice and fairness to New Zealanders. I wonder if we'd do this if it was something that affected a business. I wonder whether we'd have the same approach. But this is about people who are on a benefit. And I just hope, Minister, the government's not been blinded by that word benefit and beneficiaries. That this isn't just some sort of approach because they are beneficiaries, that it's easy to deny them natural justice and fairness. I hope that's not the case. Give them the benefit of the doubt in this House. So I say, Minister Bennett, do your best, see if you can accept the supplementary order paper, give a 6 weeks period, and we would support the bill.
Mr Chairman,
I call Grant Roberts.